So our theme today is around mindfulness, meditation. And I know that the word meditation, and that's why I hesitated to say it a little bit, is a word that can strike fear into people's hearts. So it's one of those things that's quite misunderstood. And what I hear often from people is that they can't meditate because their mind is too busy. I also hear people say a lot they can't do yoga because they're not flexible. So for me, that's sort of like saying I can't eat because I'm hungry, right? It's like the thing we need is the thing we're saying that we can't do. So if your mind is really busy, then meditation might be very helpful for you. If your body's very stiff, maybe finding some postures that you can do to help loosen things up would be helpful. So what I want to say today is that meditation isn't about turning a light switch off in your mind and making your mind blank and no longer having a busy mind ever. Our minds are made to think, and that's what they do best. And so when our minds are jumping from thought to thought, though, it can be quite stressful and create some anxiety. So what we ideally want to do is learn to direct our thoughts so that we can stay focused. And meditation isn't about being focused the whole time, it's about noticing, right? So when we go off somewhere else and we lose ourselves, it's in that noticing, right? Half an hour can go by and we're still churning on our thoughts, but if we can notice sooner, we can bring our attention back. And bring our attention back where, right? That's the question. So we're looking for bringing the mind to anywhere that is in the present moment. So that could be having your eyes open and simply taking in the visual stimulus around you. It could be listening for the more subtle sounds around you. And one of the most common techniques of bringing the mind back to focus is the breath. So the breath is always with us. And when we focus on the breath, we're focusing on the moment. We could also focus on the sensations in our bodies. That can be a bit tricky if there's a lot of pain or discomfort in the body. So we start to dwell on that. So if you can focus on your body without kind of getting overly focused on what doesn't feel good, that can be a helpful focus as well. The breath can also be a challenging focus, and if you're, in the same part of the world I am, the blossoms are starting to come out, and it's absolutely gorgeous. But people who suffer from seasonal allergies are feeling the effects of pollen in the lungs. So, if breathing, and this isn't a problem for me, but I know for a lot of people it is. So, if breathing is a problem for you, focusing on the breath might create a lot of agitation. There's many other possibilities that we could focus on, but I don't want to overwhelm you. So that will be our focus today. We'll take little breaks to kind of come back to mindfulness. And at the end of the practice, we're going to sit for a few minutes doing a bit of breath work and a bit of focused mindfulness. So if you know that having a chair or a meditation cushion or something like that to help you sit comfortably would be helpful, you might want to have that available for you before we get started. So I will see you on the mat, and we're going to start as we always do, lying down and with a little bit of a centering. So as you make your way to your mat, finding a comfortable position, lying down if you like. And there's, certainly no rules that say the eyes should be open or closed. You can tune into what would feel best for you. And with mindfulness, keeping the eyes open can be a really useful technique if you're focusing on what is visually around you. Sometimes closing the eyes and going inward can be too much. We may feel a bit overwhelmed, or it's like there's too much going on in the mind. So opening up the eyes and just looking around can be helpful. And as we go through the practice today, if you feel at all overwhelmed by, paying attention internally, feel free to focus externally at any time. So if your eyes are open, you might take in what's in the room around you. And if your eyes are closed, instead you may tune into any sounds that you can hear. Try to notice whatever you notice without judgment, without creating a story, taking it in as simply stimulus for your senses. So our senses are always activated in the present moment. When we smell something or taste something, it's happening now. When we hear something or see something, it's right here in this moment. So what are your senses aware of right now? We can also tune into our sense of touch, and this is something that we work a lot with in yoga, is how we experience or feel sensation in our bodies. So you might be aware of where your body touches the ground. You might tune into that pressure. And perhaps if it feels comfortable for you, you might tune in and notice other sensations in the body. And again, if you are experiencing pain or discomfort today, and that's taking all of your attention as you bring your mind and focus to your bodily sensations, you might want to go back to tuning into the other senses, seeing or hearing. Probably taste or smell aren't going to be big factors in this moment, although they might be in your space. And as we invite the attention to go a little deeper, you're welcome to tune into the rhythm and the movement of your breath. The breath is considered to be a bridge between body and spirit. The word for breath, prana in Sanskrit, also has an implication of spirit or energy. So if it's comfortable for you, feeling the rhythm of the breath as it moves your body, maybe noticing how the breath feels at the nostrils as it comes in and out, or perhaps focusing on the chest or the movement in the belly. And again, if any of the specific focuses that I suggest don't feel comfortable to you, you can always go back to something else that we've already done or something that you know feels more comfortable to you. As you're ready, you can start to perhaps deepen the breath and add a bit of movement. Just gradually moving your body in any way that would feel good. Our focus physically today will be on creating some movement in the hips as well as strengthening the lower back so that when we do get towards the end of the class, excuse me, and come to sit, it will hopefully be a little bit more easeful for the lower back and hips. So when you're ready to bring a little more movement, you can invite the knees up into the chest. Drawing the knees towards you as you exhale, moving the knees away as you inhale. One hand on each knee, fingers pointing toward the toes if that's comfortable for your wrists. Do the movement at either the pace of your breath or whatever pace is comfortable, and allowing the breath to be easeful. Check in with your lower back, what you're experiencing and noticing as you do this. And you can continue the mindfulness, paying attention throughout the class today, even while moving, noticing what you feel or listening to the sounds or tuning into what you see or your breath. Maybe make some circles with your knees if that would feel good for the lower back, massaging around the sacrum at the back of the hips. Moving in one direction and then the other. And then let's bring the feet to the floor. You can let the arms come down to relax along the sides of your body. And we'll raise the arms straight up overhead, taking a breath in if you're coordinating your breathing here. The hands don't have to come to the floor, but they might. Please don't strain in bringing the arms down to your sides. If it feels more comfortable for your arms and shoulders, elbows can bend, maybe come more to the sides rather than overhead, and then back down. And then let's alternate bringing knees to chest, so arms raising up with an inhale if you're coordinating your breathing. Exhaling, one knee coming in. As the foot comes down, the arms reach up. Breathing in, and then other knee comes in as you exhale. So warming up the back and hips a little bit. You might tune into what you experience and feel there if that is comfortable for you. Keeping the mind engaged with the practice. And continue until you come in with the right knee, and you can take the hands right behind the thigh or over the shin and give a little squeeze in. Not so much that it feels strained or uncomfortable or you're forcing or fighting with yourself. Try to relax your shoulders. We'll give a little stretch for the hamstrings as well as some movement for the joints in the leg, ankle, knee, hip. You can keep the hands behind the thigh if you like, or let the arms come to rest on the ground. Moving the leg to a straighter position just until you feel some stretch in the back of the leg, and then bending the knee. So for some of you, that might look like a totally straight leg. For others, there may be a bend in the knee and the leg may reach away from you a little to find as much ease as possible here. Next time the leg reaches up toward the ceiling, if you want a bit more support here, you can bring the hands behind the thigh or the shin. Gently easing the leg towards you if that feels right for you right now, if it's ready for a little more stretch, or maybe backing off if you feel like you've gone a little too far, too fast. You can circle the ankle around. Again, holding is optional. If you feel like you're straining to hold the leg, just let go. Circle with the ankle one way and then the other. You can give that leg a little shake. And then bend the knee back in toward the chest and release your foot to the floor. Take a breath here. Maybe notice how the right leg feels versus the left leg. And then when you're ready, we'll extend the arms overhead with the breath in. And then exhaling, left knee coming in. You can hold there for a couple of breaths. Again, it could be either above the knee at the shin, or I guess that's below, or behind the knee, the thigh. And then either continue to hold the leg, or you can release as you move the leg straighter and then more bent. Following the pace that feels most comfortable to you, whether that's inhaling as you lift and exhaling as you lower, or simply making the breath and movement whatever comfortable pace feels right. At some point, you can leave the leg in the air and, whoops, a little crack in my ankle there. You might hear some sounds from your own joints, which is quite normal. You want to make sure that it's not painful. Although, that said, if there's arthritis in the joint, it will often be a little bit painful to move, but the wisdom is we need to keep moving to keep the joints lubricated and supple. So a little bit of discomfort, if there's arthritis, may be your normal, never working to the point that you're straining or forcing. And then you can release the leg if you're still holding on, give a little shake. And then knee coming back in toward the chest. And releasing your foot to the floor. Again, you can take a moment here to observe whatever sensations may be present for you. And it may be subtle, so you may not notice much, and that's quite normal too. When you're ready, you can raise the arms to the sides along the ground. Shoulder height or a little bit lower, just a bit away from the body so we can work with a twist. And you can take both legs to one side if that's comfortable for you, or it may be that just taking one knee to the side and letting the other stay up may be a better twist or movement for you today. So either one leg to the side and then to the center, or both legs if you like. As your legs go one way, you might turn the head the opposite way if that feels good for your neck. That's optional. If you're coordinating breath, exhale as you go to the side. Inhale as you come to center. Great. And then eventually finding your way back to the center. And you can bring the knees up into the chest again. And again, you might move forward and back, or you could circle or move side to side. My ability to stay mindful and present is being tested a bit right now, as it seems a mosquito has come into my space. So I'm just watching it and letting it be as I keep bringing my attention back to sensations in my body and breath. You'll find you may have distractions as well, and distractions aren't necessarily our enemy. They can be our friend. They can ask us to dig a little deeper and work a little harder to find what we're looking for in this case, which is being present with ourselves. You can hug the knees in for a couple of breaths. And then as you're ready, slowly releasing your feet to the floor. You might stretch the legs out for a moment. The hands could rest on your body or on the ground beside you. And if it's a comfortable focus for you to pay attention to what you feel in your body, you might tune into the lower body where we've done most of the work today: hips, thighs, knees, calves, ankles, and feet. And simply noticing what's present for you. And again, if any suggestion that I make for a focus doesn't feel right for you or is uncomfortable, just like not forcing the body. Let's not force the attention either. So you can always bring your attention and your focus to something else, like what you see or what you hear, your breath. Right, when you're ready, you can bend the knees again, bringing the feet to the floor. We'll take a breath in and extend the arms overhead. And then exhaling, let's bring the right knee back into the chest. And if it feels comfortable for you, you could stretch the left leg straight out on the ground. Keeping it bent is also an option. And if you straighten the leg, you keep the thigh engaged, toes pointing toward the ceiling, heel gently pressing into the ground. And then we'll do a little movement for that right hip. So you can let the right knee come into the right hand, maybe into the left hand, coming a little across the midline of your body. If it would feel good to make some circles, you might make the right half of your circle with the right hand, the left half with the left hand, or any other movement. Maybe a figure 8 would feel good for your hip, or maybe little forward and back movements would feel good. So tune in and explore the movement here that gets into your hip joint in a way that feels good this morning. If it would feel right for you to add a bit of extra twist here, you could take the knee into the left hand and roll onto your left hip, either coming across briefly and then back onto your back, or at any point, if you'd like to stay in that twist for a few breaths, you're welcome to. The foot could rest on your thigh or perhaps come to the floor on either side of your leg. Gradually making your way back to the center. Squeezing the knee in, check again with that left thigh. If your leg is straight, that the thigh is engaged, toes point up. And then we'll slowly release that foot to the floor. Bend both knees. And if your hips have shifted off to the side, you can lift them up and bring them back down so you feel even through your hips and spine. We'll take the same leg that we were just working with, so the right leg, ankle crossing over the left thigh, just above the knee. And lots of options here for more stretch if you feel like you need it. So for most people, you're going to feel some stretch in the outer right hip, maybe into the inner right hip or the hamstrings. Gently pressing the thigh away will sometimes give you a little more stretch. You want to be mindful of your knee here. If you're feeling a twist in the knee, you want to back off. So to get more stretch, if you feel like that would be appropriate for you, you can bring the knees closer to the chest. So one option, if you've got a block handy, would be to simply lift up your left foot, slide a block under, and allow the knees to come closer in that way with the support under your left foot. It could be reaching a belt behind your thigh if you can't quite reach with your hands, or you might clasp your hands behind your right thigh. So find the expression of this pose that excuse me, works best for you. Rocking a bit side to side might be helpful. You can also simply hold the pose and tune into your breath, noticing, does the stretch change from the inhale to the exhale? As you're ready to release, you can slowly come out of the pose, whatever expression of the pose you're in, releasing the ankle from the knee. And again, you might spend a breath or two here simply observing the sensations that are present in your right hip versus your left hip. And then when you're ready, we'll extend the arms overhead, breathing in. Exhaling, left knee coming in toward the chest. Pausing for a couple of breaths. And again, optional to take the right leg now and extend it along the ground, keeping that leg active and engaged. Toes point up, heel presses down. Thigh drawing up towards the hip. So again, any kind of movement here for that hip, side to side, circling around, figure eights or back and forth movements. Tuning into what would feel the best for you in this moment. Sometimes we don't know. We just have to experiment and play and see what our body says yes to if we're able to tune into that yes. Sometimes there's a lot of other noise, what we think we should feel or what we want to feel. But can we simply tune into what is? It can be very challenging. Be kind to yourself wherever you're at this morning. If your hips are tight and feels like any movement is challenging, just keep the movement small and be gentle. Again, if it would feel appropriate and good for you to add a bit of twist, you might take the knee into the right hand and either come briefly into the twist and back out, or it may be that your body says yes to staying in a twist for a little bit longer here. So it could be a little bit of a twist. It could be a little more of a twist. You want to make sure the opposite shoulder is comfortable. So if you want more stretch in that shoulder, extending the arm higher, less stretch, you can bring the arm down or even let the hand come to rest on your hip or your waist. And eventually coming back onto your back, bringing that foot to the floor. Bending the other leg so that both knees are bent, feet on the floor. And again, you might shift your shoulders and hips to come back to what feels like an equal position for your spine. And then knees coming into the chest. You can repeat the movement that we've done a few times already, back and forth with the knees. If there's another movement that would feel good, you might engage with that. And another option would be to stretch both legs up, both arms either out to the sides or overhead, and then back into the center. So a little dynamic movement. Inhaling to expand, exhaling to contract back. And eventually drawing the knees to the chest once more. And I think we forgot a stretch on this side. We didn't, I did. So we'll come back, feet to the floor, and take the left ankle over the right knee. Again, if you want a little bit more stretch, you can try first pressing gently away with the left thigh. Again, honoring the knee. So if you feel a twisting or pulling or tension in the knee, the wisdom here is back off. So feeling it in the outer inner hip or hamstrings, as long as it's a stretch that you can comfortably tolerate, that's fine. But you want to honor the knee and make sure that it's not feeling any discomfort. Again, a block under the foot or reaching behind the right thigh with either both hands or both hands in a belt. A little, this little word of maybe caution or attention here. There's a tendency to want to reach behind the leg that's closer to you, which would be the left leg in this case. That tends to not give as much stretch as if you reach behind the right leg, or the leg that has the ankle on the thigh. You can experiment with holding either leg and see what feels better for you, because certainly we're all a little different. And you might find that actually holding the other leg feels better for you, in which case you can even leave the other foot on the floor. Rocking a bit side to side, if you find that helpful. I find it turns the stretch off and on. It makes it more of a dynamic stretch. Less intense for me, but that may not be your experience. So tune into what feels right for you in the moment. And also know that sometimes we don't know what feels right. Does this feel better than that? And that's okay. It's working in a way that is not creating tension in your body is some days the goal. When you're ready, you can bring that foot to the floor and uncross the legs. And let's take a breath in and extend the arms overhead. And then exhale, draw your lower back toward the ground, engage your core. You can raise both knees up, and again, coming back to symmetry by drawing the knees forward and back here. And as you feel ready, you can bring your feet back to the floor. We'll work now with bridge pose. So bridge pose is a bit of back strengthener, leg strengthener. Can be quite a strengthener for the hamstrings as well as the quads, especially if we think about creating some isometric stretch by drawing the heels up towards the shoulders when we're in the pose, or lifting and lowering the pose. But you want to be very gentle with that action, because it can create some cramping in the hamstrings if your hamstrings aren't used to that. So you can let the arms rest on the ground beside you. And another option would be to bring the palms down beside your hips and raise the arms overhead and lower them as you lift the hips. So either letting the arms rest beside you or raising and lower them. We'll take a breath in to begin. Exhale, press down into your feet. And then lifting the hips, maybe extending the arms as you breathe in. And then exhale, lowering down. And as always, coordinating the breath is optional, but you still need to breathe in whatever way is comfortable. So lifting and lowering. If it's comfortable for you and you can manage without creating tension in your knees or hips, keeping the feet flat on the floor, so there's a tendency to roll to the outer edges of the feet. And that may be compensation for challenges with the knees. So listening to your body, and if you need to lift less or move the feet further away from your hips to get more ease in the knees, that's an option as well. And then we're going to stay in the pose. So next time you come down, you might keep the arms down beside you for this one, so that we can use the arms for some support. And we'll have the option as we stay in the pose to work a little bit more with leg strength. So know that it's an option. And if you're feeling like just being in bridge is enough for you today, that's fine. And you can certainly come out of the pose anytime. Take a breath in, exhale, press down into your feet, and then inhale to slowly lift the hips. If it feels right for you, you might wiggle your upper body a little side to side and draw the shoulder blades in. Press down into the arms and the hands. You might find it more comfortable to have the palms up, which is also fine. Whatever feels good for your shoulders. And if you want to work a little bit more here, you can come up onto the toes of one foot. Bring that knee in toward the chest. Maybe and then back in and down. Know that this is quite challenging. So if you try that and find that it's just too much for you this morning, please listen to your body. You can come down and rest in between if you like, or stay up and bridge if you want to work a little bit more on the strength of the glutes, the hamstrings, and lower back. And if you want to work with the other side in the same way, you can come onto your toes. Just find some stability in the other leg. It's quite a bit of effort. Bring them in. Maybe stretch the leg up, back in, and down. Take a breath in here. Find maybe a little more lift. And if you've wiggled your shoulder blades together as you exhale, you can wiggle them apart. And then slowly release the hips down toward the ground. Nice full breath here. Exhale, let go of the effort, especially if you stayed up for the whole time. It can be quite a bit of work to be in bridge pose. So just let your body settle for a moment. And if it feels right for you to, again, bring the knees into the chest and do any movement here to give a little stretch and release to the low back after bridge. So as you're ready, we'll bring the feet to the floor. You can roll onto your side and make your way back upright. So from here, we'll move on to all fours. Hands under the shoulders. Try and have the weight evenly spread across the heel of your hand and into the fingertips. Knees under the hips. And letting the spine move by lifting the tail and drawing the chest forward, maybe lifting the head slightly, not cranking it back, but feeling like your head extends the length of your spine. And then you can round the back, tucking the tailbone under, tucking the chin in. Continue like that. If you want to coordinate with your breathing, inhale as you extend. Try to keep your elbows soft, even bend them as you inhale. There's a tendency to lock the elbows and scrunch the shoulders. Try to keep that length. If you prefer moving to child's pose rather than to cat pose, instead of rounding on all fours, you can round and bring the hips and heels closer towards each other and the head toward the ground. Inhale, arms soft, chest moving forward, neck long. Exhale, whichever version of the flexion of the spine feels best for you. And then we'll add some alternate arm and leg lifts. So as you inhale, you can extend opposite arm and leg out, just about parallel to the ground or lower if that's better for you. Bring them down and either rounding to cat or child's pose. Opposite arm to leg, reaching as you breathe in. Exhale, whichever posture is best for you. If you like child's pose, you can stay there for a few breaths, either resting on your forearms or your head could be on your hands or a block or the floor if that's available to you. If your knees and ankles aren't happy in child's pose, a version of puppy where the hips are a little higher and the elbows are on the ground can also be a nice pose of rest and release. So when you're ready, we'll come back up to all fours. And from the all fours position, we want to extend the hands a little forward. So if you take the heel of your hand where your fingertips were roughly, and then let the hips come forward, we want to find a position where the shoulders roughly line up under the wrists. You can play around with where that is for you. And we come into what we'll call a half plank, or a kneeling plank. And from your kneeling plank, we're going to make our way down to the ground. So if you bend your elbows, keep your shoulders moving back. You can allow the body to roll down from the thighs to the belly, to the chest, to the forehead. Let the hands come forward for a moment. The feet can either be flat on the floor or toes tucked under. If your forehead comes comfortably to the ground, you can do that. I'm mindful of my microphone, so I'm hovering above the ground here. So we're going to start by gently pressing down into the hips and thighs. You can engage the glutes here and feel anchored through the lower body. And then as you inhale, lift the chest and head without putting any pressure on the arms. Exhale and lower down. Inhale, lift. And exhale to lower. If you like, next time you come up, you can stay for a few breaths. If you want a little more traction for the spine, pull back with your hands as you press down with the legs. Feel the muscles of your back wake up and engage a little more. And then when you're ready, slowly lower down. You might rest your head on your hands or turn your head to one side. If you like, you can bend your knees and take the feet or the lower legs side to side. And then let's come back to the center. You can release your feet back to the floor. And take the arms down by your sides, again, forehead to the ground. And here we'll lift again, breathing in. Exhale, lower. So now we don't have the hands to potentially help us. Using the strength of the back. And if you want more here, you can do as we did on all fours. So as you lift up, opposite arm and leg, extend, and come back as you exhale. Opposite arm and leg on the other side, and back as you exhale. Again, I'm not bringing my forehead all the way down because of my microphone, but you can do that if it's comfortable for you. All right, and then we have the option here to stay in the pose. And we're not going to stay asymmetrically, we'll stay symmetrically. So you can choose to keep the arms on the ground if you like, beside you. You're going to press down into the hips, lift the chest, head, and maybe both legs. The legs are also optional. And if you want to work more here, give yourself a bit more challenge, you can extend the arms overhead. Elbows could be bent or arms straight. Breathing. When you're ready to come down, if you've brought the arms up, you can bring them back down, tuck them into your sides with the palms on either side of your face. And then moving the hands back to lift the elbows, press into the palms, and come back up to all fours. And then any movement here that would feel good after all of that back strengthening, back bending work. Contraction back bends, lifting from the floor, help to strengthen the muscles of the back. So giving them a little release, maybe circling the hips or more cat-cow or all fours to child's pose. If you're feeling a little more energetic and your body will enjoy downward dog, you can come up into a downward dog. Either flowing through back to all fours and child's pose, or you might choose to stay in downward dog for a few breaths or stay in child's pose for a few breaths. Right, eventually, we're going to make our way to a seated posture. So if you're still enjoying some movement and feeling like that's helpful for you to release after the back bending, just take a little extra time. And then eventually, finding your way to a seated posture. So sitting could be on a chair, it could be on the floor, it could even be on the couch, but you want to try not to sink into the couch and slump over. So one of the things with breathing and mindfulness meditation, really any kind of meditation, it's usually done seated. It's often too easy to fall asleep if we're lying down. And having lots of space in the body so we're not crunched over and cutting off our energy helps to have a feeling of more energy flow in the body with the breath work. Now, if you feel uncomfortable in the hip flexors or the lower back, so the front of the hips or the lower back is often a place where people find it difficult to sit, you might raise your hips a little higher. So getting up on a bolster or a cushion can be helpful, or even on a chair with your feet flat on the floor. If you're sitting cross-legged and your hips feel like they need support, you might use blocks under your knees to support you. So I'd like to introduce you to a very simple breath technique. It may not be simple for you, in fact, actually, because it requires that the nostrils, both nostrils, are free and clear. So if you're suffering from allergies or you have any reason why one or both nostrils aren't clear for you today, your breath practice today will simply be to observe the breath, to try to create a little length in the breath and simply observe the breath. And again, if the breath is an uncomfortable focus, what you see around you, what you hear, or what you feel in your body may be a better focus for you. So tuning more into the senses. So the way that the alternate nostril breath technique works is you'll use your right hand. If you tuck your first two fingers into your palm, your thumb and your ring finger are going to do the work here. So the thumb closes the right nostril, and the ring finger closes the left nostril. And you'll go back and forth like that. Now, the technique we're going to use is called Analoma Ujjayi breath. So it's a long-winded way of saying we're only going to use the alternate technique on the exhalation. So you're going to inhale through both nostrils and exhale, alternating. Inhale both, exhale, alternating. You can keep the hand in front of your face while you inhale. I like to bring my arm down so that my shoulder doesn't get tired from doing the breath technique. Whatever works for you. We'll just spend a couple of minutes with this and then we'll flow into our mindfulness meditation from there. We will still have Shavasana for a few minutes at the end, so you know what's coming. So again, if your nostrils are not freely flowing today, breathe in whatever way is comfortable for you and try to keep your focus coming back to whatever's present in the moment. If you're joining for the alternate nostril technique, you can breathe in, close your right nostril with your thumb, gently exhale through the left. Inhale through both. Close the left nostril with your ring finger. Exhale through the right. Continue like that. Continue with the technique, if you're doing the alternate nostril technique, until you exhale through the right nostril. And that's completing the cycle. And then take a few normal breaths and simply observe what you notice in any realm: sounds, sights, breath, body. And then I would invite you to choose a focus for the next couple of minutes as we do a mindfulness practice. And this practice is very simple. We've been doing it throughout the classes, inviting the mind back to something that's in the present moment every time we notice it wanders. So it might wander and we don't notice because we're so enthralled and engaged in where we've gone in our mind. But as soon as we notice, we simply bring the attention back to whatever's present. Choosing a focus, either the sounds or the breath or sensations, sights around you, something that helps you to bring your attention back to the present moment. We'll just spend a few minutes here, maybe 2 more minutes. And certainly if you're watching this later on the recording, you can pause the recording and spend longer if you'd like. Eyes open or closed, bringing the attention back every time it wanders, every time you notice that it wanders. Notice where your mind is right now, and if it's gone somewhere else, bring it back to your focus. But 1 more minute. We're going to transition. If you choose to lie down, you can certainly stay seated. We'll have just a few minutes for a little rest. So if you want to stay seated, that's fine. If you want to lie down for a couple of minutes and let the body completely rest, feel free. So now would be the time to transition if you choose to do so. Try to stay in that mindful place. If you've chosen to lie down, taking your time to find an easeful, comfortable position. You might tune into your breath and deepen your exhalation or deepen your focus on your exhalation. So you have a feeling of releasing and sinking down as you exhale. Soften around the jaw, the face, the eyes. Relax the shoulders and arms. Notice if there's tension around your abdomen and soften there. Maybe even feel the breath moving in and out. Soften into the hips, whether you're sitting, feel the sit bones sinking down, or the back of the pelvis if you're lying down. And finding ease in the legs, from the hips to the knees, from the knees to the ankles, and softening any feeling of tension in your feet that you're aware of and able to let go. Today I'll chant for you the very simple chant Om Shanti Shanti Shanti, chanting each time the word Shanti, which is peace, 3 times. We're inviting peace into our thoughts, our mind, peace into our words or voice, and peace into our body or actions. I'll repeat this a few times as you simply tune into your breath or whatever focus is comfortable and listen to the sound, the chant for peace. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. If you're lying down or sitting, deepen the breath. Invite a little more energy into the body. If you want to stay in Shavasana or stay with the seated meditation, you might just turn the recording off and stay for a little longer or as long as you like. And if you're ready to get on with your day, And add a little movement, stretching on your back or seated, just whatever might feel good. If you're lying down, eventually rolling onto your side, coming up to sit. Find a comfortable seat, and I would like to invite you to chant with me this morning if you'd like. This is absolutely optional. And the thing about chanting is it doesn't have to sound good. You don't have to be on the right notes. It's not about anything like that the way we perceive singing to be. It's really about feeling the resonance in your body and the meaning of the chant. So if you'd like to join me, bring your palms together. Exhale, and then take a breath in. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. If you like that chant, you can use it anytime you feel like you might need a little more peace in your thoughts, words, and actions, in your life, your relationships. Carrying whatever peace the mindfulness practice may have opened for you today into your day. And know that mindfulness practice can also bring up agitation when we start to pay attention to what's going on in our bodies and minds. Sometimes it can feel a bit overwhelming, so if that's the case for you, please be kind to yourself. And wherever you're at, I hope you have a lovely day. Namaste.